back on Into the Space Cowboy Show. I'm your host, Ricardo, and it's finally time we talk about the moves the Dallas Cowboys are going to need to make to get under the salary cap in 2026, not only to just balance the books, but to be able to re-sign their own guys and be players in free agency, which sounds funny enough knowing how they don't do anything in free agency. But we'll get into that in today's video. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, hit that notification bell. That way it helps out the channel, number one, but number two, you don't miss out on future Dallas Cowboys content as it comes out here on the channel. Other thing that I wanted to mention, the show is powered by Creshman Media. If you haven't done so already, please go check out the other shows on the Creshman Media Network. So there are a couple moves that the Cowboys can make to get under the salary cap. They can restructure some of the already existing contracts they have, they can cut some players, and they can also look to extend players to lessen salary cap hits. So starting things off with restructuring players that are currently under contract for the Dallas Cowboys, there is a misconception where people think that when you restructure a player's contract that it's the player that's taking a pay cut that allows the team to open up cap space. That is not what a restructure is. All that's doing is taking the base salary of the contract and turning it into a signing bonus. The player is still getting that money. However, for the team, it's pushing that money down the road into future years. So the easiest way to put it is like you're opening a credit card or taking a loan, basically. So the Cowboys can do a couple of these restructures to open up enough cap space to get them under the salary cap. So starting things off with the contract I think they're going to restructure first is Dak Prescott's. If you do that, that opens up $31 million in cap space, which gets you so close to being under the salary cap. But I think they're going to do a couple more moves than just Dak Prescott's. I think they're also going to restructure CeeDee Lamb's contract, which would open up $19 million, and then Tyler Smith's contract, which would open up around $17 million. So by doing just those three moves, that would open up enough cap space for the Cowboys to be under the salary cap by $35 million, which I don't think is going to do enough to do all of the moves that I think you should be doing this particular offseason. So you can either continue to restructure contracts, or you can go ahead and sign some extensions or look to release some players. Now, there are three other contracts that the Cowboys can look to restructure, in my opinion, that I wouldn't touch if I were them, but you can do it if you want to continue opening up more cap space. Would be restructuring Osa Odighizuwa's contract, which would open up $12 million. You have DaRon Bland's contract, which would open up $8.6 million, and Jake Ferguson's contract, which would open up $4.8 million. So by doing all of the restructures that I mentioned, this would make you go under the salary cap by $60.4 million. This would allow you to re-sign guys like George Pickens, Brandon Aubrey, etc., and more importantly, it would allow you to play with your money in free agency if you wish to go sign some guys that are starter quality or some depth pieces. So the next set of moves the Cowboys can look to do is extend players to help lower salary cap hits that are currently on the books in 2026 and also spread it out over the next couple of seasons. The first guy I'm looking to extend is Quinnen Williams. You do that, that's going to save you around $15 million in cap space. So you add that onto the restructures that we did, and you're looking at $75 million under the salary cap for the Cowboys. You can also, with Kenny Clark, extend him, say $15 million, or if you designate him as a post-June 1st cut, you can save around $20 million, but I don't think the Cowboys are going to cut Kenny Clark the way they've been talking about him, so I would not be shocked if the Cowboys gave him like a short-term extension to lessen the salary cap hit, or they just let the cap hit stay there and think about what they're going to do with him the following season. Either way, if you do that, if you were to extend Kenny Clark, you would be opening up another $15 million. You add that onto what we have, and now you're at $90 million in salary cap space to play with. Now, the last set of moves that the Cowboys can make is look to cut these particular players that I'm going to mention, where it would open up even more cap space to the stuff that we've already talked about. Those players start off with Terrence Steele. If you were to designate him as a post-June 1st cut, you would save around $10 million this season, but when you go into 2027, you would have around a $5 million dead cap hit that you would have to deal with before his money comes off the books fully in 2028. The other thing you can look to do is you can cut Malik Hooker. That would save you around $6.5 million. And finally, you can cut a guy like Logan Wilson, and that would also save you around $6.5 million. So by doing all of the moves that I have just mentioned, this would open up $113 million in cap space for the Dallas Cowboys to utilize. Now, I know what you're thinking at this point in time in the video. Space, why would you even talk about this stuff? Why would you even think about making a video about this? Because you know the Dallas Cowboys aren't going to do these things. The reason I'm making this video is because every single offseason just about, the Dallas Cowboys love to complain about how much money they're shelling out to these players, and they're unable to participate actively in free agency because of the pie or the cap or insert type of way to describe how much money they have to use in free agency. And I hate how easily brainwashed this fan base can be when it comes to how this front office operates. We have seen other franchises able to manipulate the salary cap in ways that help them remain competitive year in and year out, or allow them to continue to restructure their rosters in a manner to try and accelerate their rebuilds. And the Cowboys have been so cheap in free agency, there are two contracts that I want to highlight just for reference. The first is Solomon Thomas from last offseason. He is the first Cowboy since Terrell Basham in 2021 to receive a multi-year contract from the Cowboys as an external free agent. And it's not an expensive contract whatsoever. And the other contract I want to highlight is Dante Fowler from last offseason as well, because you might not have known this, but he is the most expensive free agent that the Dallas Cowboys have signed with an $8 million one-year contract since Greg Hardy in 2015 with that $10 million one-year contract that they gave him back then. It is insane to me how the Cowboys have gone that long not spending that kind of money on external free agents. Now, some Cowboys fans think that you shouldn't go spend willy-nilly in free agency because that doesn't equate to winning a championship. I'm not asking the Dallas Cowboys front office to go swipe their credit card and sign every single player on the open market. I don't think anybody is asking for that. What I am asking for is simply to fill the holes adequately with the talent that's leaving the building or that you need on this team. So, for example, you're going to need a cornerback. You're going to need some linebackers. You're going to need some edge rushers, right? You want to be able to protect yourself so that you're not forcing yourself going into the 2026 NFL draft saying, I need to get this position, because guess what? Other teams are going to know that you're going to need to fill that hole on your roster. So they're going to probably try to leapfrog you to avoid that. The Dallas Cowboys need to have money to go out and get guys that are starter quality free agents, because we've seen year in and year out, what have they done? They have gone out into free agency and gotten guys that are either one, camp bodies, or guys that are barely on the depth chart as backups. And that is exactly why I get so frustrated with the front office every single year. They are expecting different results for doing the same thing over and over again. That's insanity, right? That is the literal definition of insanity. Because I talked about in a past show where how Stephen Jones would talk about how, oh, teams don't win Super Bowls in the offseason. But as I said, you can for sure lose one in the offseason if you don't make adequate moves to improve your team. And the Dallas Cowboys don't do that. They are not a proactive organization. They are a reactive organization. And that is why the Cowboys have gone 30 years without sniffing the NFC title game, because they fail to perform adequate roster construction with the tools they have available to them. When you look at it in a vacuum, you have trades, free agency, and the draft. So when you look at how the Cowboys operate in free agency, now you need to hope that you either hit on the draft enough to where you can negate the shortcomings from free agency, or you make enough trades to where you don't have to rely heavily on your draft or your deficiencies of what you do in free agency or lack thereof. And as we have seen from the Dallas Cowboys when it comes to their draft classes, they have to expect more from guys on day 2 and day 3 to contribute, as opposed to how other teams would, because guess what? Other teams are participating in free agency and they're not asking day 3 guys to be starters or key contributors immediately. And that also affects the perception of us fans, because now fans are looking highly at these particular players to make up for the deficiencies that you had going into the season. And that is why I get so frustrated, because again, you were putting improper expectations on some of these players to be something that they aren't, or just aren't ready to be yet, especially considering the fact that you put them in that position to begin with. And a really good example of this, I would say, from past drafts would be a guy like Jalen Tolbert, for example. Yes, a third round selection, so you would expect a bit more of him. But when you think about it, you let go of Amari Cooper by trading him to Cleveland, and you bring him in here because your expectation was this guy is going to be wide receiver 2. He's going to be paired alongside CeeDee Lamb. He'll be just fine. When in reality, Jalen Tolbert's a wide receiver 3 at 4 at best. And so you're putting these lofty expectations on him. So when he fails, guess what? Now the fans are going to look at him funny because like, yo, we were expecting you to be this, when in reality he just isn't that, or he wasn't ready to be in that position. I do understand that the player has to take some form of responsibility for their shortcomings, but at the same time, if you are putting players that aren't to be in those particular positions, that's on you. That's not on the player. So again, I want to highlight for everybody that is watching this that if you are watching how the Cowboys are operating in free agency and they're going to say the same things over and over and over again about, oh, we got to save up for this, or we are waiting to spend because we don't know XYZ. I'm telling you right now, the Cowboys can do these things if they want to. They're just choosing not to. And the other thing about this too, and why the Cowboys need to go all in 2026 and 2027 and not be afraid to spend money, is due to the fact that we have seen that the league can change instantaneously year and year out. And I think that if the Dallas Cowboys are looking at the landscape of the league, particularly the NFC, and if you want to hyper-focus on it, the NFC East, it does look like a window of opportunity is going to open up for you in 2026 and maybe 2027. I do think that the Dallas Cowboys, if they make the right moves, can win the NFC East in 2026. Now, just because we win the NFC East in 2026 is not the hallmark accomplishment that we want. The accomplishment that we all want to see is them hoisting the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the season. So, if you want to best position yourself to do that, you're going to need to load this roster up with guys that can give you solid production for what you're willing to pay, and also nail your draft class, and finally, if you want to, make trades to add already established talent onto your roster. We're not going to do this anymore where we're going to listen to this front office tell us, oh, there's always next year, oh, there's always next year, or oh, we got to save money for this contract. No, we're done doing that. Now's the time to swipe the credit cards. Now's the time to go all in. If you're continuing to do the same things, you're going to keep wasting players' careers, and we are done with that. Point blank, period. So with that being said, guys, what do you have to say about this? Should the Cowboys start swiping the credit cards? Is this the time for them to go all in? Please let me know it down in the comment section below, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye.